Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Always the last minute technical issue where my LinkedIn account fell off from our streaming service here. So I am joined here today. I'm Christy. For those who don't know, I'm joined by Kieran and Claire. A lot of alliteration there. Because I think it's a topic that we're really, really passionate about. And it's one that I've certainly been in a lot of circles and one-to-one discussions over the past 6 to 9 months about where does AI fall in that whole marketing equation and strategy, etc. And we wanted to bring it to everybody else because I know everybody's sharing in these questions. And I'm going to kick it off in a second, but I'm going to start with a comment that I think, Claire, you shared, the analogy that anybody can get their hands on IKEA furniture. It's if they don't need the highest quality, they're happy to have IKEA. No offense to any IKEA workers on the call right now, but they can have the IKEA, but it doesn't mean you can read the blueprint, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have a quality piece at the end of it. And I think that's maybe something that we can kind of position in people's minds while we actually say AI in recruitment marketing, opportunity or catastrophe. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of feeling that the IKEA analogy does have lots of legs, but and actually, my home is full of IKEA furniture, so I kind of feel like I'm a bit like, yeah, I'm in both camps, and actually that's really okay. But it's understanding when a piece of IKEA furniture for the games room where the kids are just literally going to throw beanbags around is okay versus that dining experience that you want where everybody's sitting comfortably for hours and you've got great conversation and great experiences happening. You want something a little bit more substantial. You want something that's real leather, and you want something that's kind of a decent piece of oak as your dining room table. So it kind of feels like there is always going to be room, and I don't think you should have one or the other. I think you can have a blend of both, but be really mindful of where that blend actually takes place.
So at that point then is touching on the fact that with some experience, a marketer will know where and when to apply AI.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, isn't it? I think that's one of the overriding factors here. It's AI is easy to adopt, but are you going to get the most from it if, and it sounds quite prejudiced, but if you don't have experience in your locker, so to speak, then you're probably going to get bogged down in all the different tech and tools. And because this is recruitment marketing, it's our backgrounds. I think why it's so important right now is we've all been there, and we all know the skepticism amongst C-suite and recruitment about marketing. So if there's a chance to replace marketers with some tech that just does our job, then you can understand why we're in an industry that kind of puts us in the bullseye somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that draws, we were looking at some research in preparation for this and looking at, Gartner put out a report and it was of CMOs and non-recruitment, across the board, and talking about how they plan to leverage AI, both in their function and both in their teams. And I think that's probably what at least all three of us can agree on. We're not talking about not using AI. It's about using it for the right things and how you leverage it and the prompts. And, I think myself, I've made the comment, oh, well, it's the human touch on it. And that's a phrase that recruiters have used a lot since the advent of LinkedIn. We all thought that, there was this kind of feeling, oh gosh, LinkedIn on the scene 15, 20 years ago, it's going to be the end of recruitment. And it wasn't. Recruitment evolves, recruiters' jobs have evolved, et cetera. And I think AI in marketing, and it can be applied across different industries and professions, but in marketing, it's part of that evolution. I mean, I once was doing classified job ads in the FT. I'm not anymore. My job has evolved. And CMOs are saying that they see this for their team. How do you both respond to that?
Do you want to go first, Kieran? Because you're running the team right now, and
yeah,
it must be something that, as well as obviously the technology you're working with at Pager, the platform, and then obviously the team as well. I think that's going to be a really good starting point.
Yeah, it's it's kind of bittersweet. I was thinking about this yesterday and today because of the fact that I'm quite hands-on with some of the technology because it plays a big part in our products. Equally, as a marketer by trade, thinking about my own background, I've kind of gone through an experience over the last, I suppose, 9 months where we've twice gone to market for a marketing assistant. And each time we've not hired a marketing assistant, we've actually adopted tools amongst the team that have bridged the gap and taken away some of the lower level tasks that we needed to execute. So, you know, we know the capabilities for generative AI to create content, but more than that, some of the, not just writing a blog post, putting the framework of a plan together and structuring a presentation and things like that. It's not that we've been able to completely get rid of lower level tasks. We've just made all the stuff that you put on a list for the marketing assistant, we've kind of done in different ways now. So why I say that's bittersweet is when I reflect on my first job as a recruitment marketer, I'm kind of stopping someone getting that opportunity myself now because of AI. So the catastrophe, as much as that sounds, you know, it sounds serious, well, it's real. There's 2 jobs that could have been at Pager that are not. So in that respect, there is a level of catastrophe about it, because if experienced marketers stop hiring junior marketers, where does the next layer of experience come through the ranks? So yeah, I'm an advocate of AI where it fits, but that's real life example there of where marketing teams are echoing the findings of that survey. Ultimately, we're not making hires. The kind of extension of that, I think the Gartner results, it's suggesting people will actually lose people or make people redundant because of what AI can do. And I think for people listening today in marketing roles, that's where I'd be giving AI some serious consideration to adopting it yourself before it takes your role.
Yeah, there's that element of sort of relevance, isn't there? And I think you really touch on an amazing point. And actually, Christy, I think we should open this up to Thrive as well from an agency perspective. The team, I know because I get to work with them, are phenomenal experts in their areas. But also as well, we have that real blend of early careers all the way through to experienced professionals in the team. How does it work with Thrive? How do you kind of bridge that gap that, you know, Kieran's mentioned, augmenting the team, but then also, you know, really enabling them to have a career journey that's as authentic as it could be based on the new technologies and the new way that our clients need us to show up?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's an evolution. You know, we're learning and evolving every day as we find new uses every day. I think as a leadership team, we recognized early on that we needed to think of kind of the high level pieces that we needed to give instruction on. You know, when we say it's the human touch, if I was to define that, is getting the right prompts. So to know what you want to achieve and use that as your North Star. And what are the right prompts? And I'm talking about ChatGPT, but there's obviously many different versions of generative AI. But the right prompts that go into it to achieve that final asset, and it's not final, I should say, to receive what comes out of it, and then the human touch to get it to where it needs to be. So, you know, early days, it was helping to advise. You know, we don't plug in a blog and say, write me a blog on this, and boom, it's done. That's it. I mean, that's, I hope that attitude's not out there, or there's a feeling that that is good enough. I hope everybody on this call knows that is not the use of these tools, and it's not how we use the tools. But we use, and I actually asked the team yesterday, because it has evolved, you know, what are some of the things they're using it for? And I'm going to read off my list that I compiled. Was transcribing meeting notes. We had an 11,000 word meeting that was transcribed and summarized into action points. So brilliant, right? It's not marketing, but it certainly is client service in this case. Using Photoshop generative AI to resize images. So if you've done your, you know, if you've created a LinkedIn image, you know, you can resize it for name your other channel. Subject line, title, header recommendations for A/B testing. For those who don't know what A/B testing is looking at A, B, C, or D, multiple versions of the same headline or subject line testing it to find out which one is going to be most successful. You test it with a small group of people, and then you can use it more widely and optimize your campaigns. So, and there is more of a list. Article outlines, calculating conversion rates and metrics, identifying publications for media relations and outlet. There's tons. But I think the underlying message here is it's approaching it with a marketer's mindset. You probably heard that in all those pieces. A/B testing, that's a marketer's mindset. And that's where we can't get lazy by using AI. AI needs to be an enabler. It's not a replacement, and it's not a reason to cut corners or be lazy. Everybody should benefit, because what it should do is it should allow you to work faster, harder, smarter, but leveraging those best practices.
Yeah, and I think, you've said a couple of things there that really resonate from a sentiment perspective. Actually, there was a post by Katrina Collier this morning that I picked up on, and instantly I was drawn to, because she's sort of, again, gone back with a sort of head in the hands, recruiters using AI to create job specs or kind of ideas. And actually, I think she references something that Lars Schmidt puts in his newsletter. Again, another real proponent of technology, but used in the right way. He asked one of the creative image AI platforms to create a version of what does the recruiter of the future look like. And it came back, and it was a robot, a white metallized robot in a suit, sitting in front of a mahogany desk, just sort of doing this. And you're like, oh, and it was a male. So you're kind of like, hold on a minute. Okay, let's go back to the things that we were flagging at the beginning of this year. This is a great advancement, an amazing innovation, but the bias is baked in, because there was a hell of a lot of bias that we as humans have programmed these large language models to kind of create, and it's still spitting out the same stuff that we're really, really not wanting. I think you touched on it, Christy. It's that experience piece. It's still the human coaching and the kind of elements of human emotional intelligence that is always going to be lacking and missing when we use these tools. So it's really important to have that experience. So kind of almost, again, just throws into that question, how do we create the marketeers of the future, augmented by these amazing technology innovations? How do we bridge that gap from, kind of creating these really fast, ergonomic, efficient marketing machines creatively and content-wise, digitally, but still have that emotional intelligence that a senior marketeer only has got because we've trod the boards, we've worked the brands, we know and understand the markets, we've lived the highs and the lows of the market conditions. How do we get there? How do we create that team that can do everything that we want, but also as well hold steadfast in that whole emotional?
I think that my last point was about how we've technically replaced people with AI within our team. That's a bit of a stretch, because, and I think this will hopefully address my thoughts on your point, Claire, is I think AI's got to be adopted amongst each role. So without plugging our product too much, we're quite passionate about building features and functionalities that sit within an existing workflow and make it more efficient. Put AI in and other stuff. We don't just put AI into everything, but create tools that help someone do something they were already going to do, but better or faster. For me, that's where, as a marketer, and as if I was earlier in my career, and I implore every marketer to look at testing these things, my view is who's best placed to get leverage from artificial intelligence generating images. For me, it's a graphic designer, right? Who's best placed to get generative AI to create content? For me, content writers, copywriters, because they can make their existing processes and workflows faster, whether that's idea generation, whether it's drafts. Each person within a team can get more efficient and faster, and therefore deliver more of the high value work and it's breaking it down into their silo and saying, right, you've got a process for generating a design from scratch. Well, here's some tools that will get you from A to B on your way to the end product much quicker now. So rather than looking at AI replacing a person or a team, AI's got to augment every part of that team, but don't look at it as a sweeping thing saying ChatGPT will solve the problem for everyone, because that's ultimately just one kind of flavor of AI right now. How you ensure that works when you hire an assistant, eventually we will hire an assistant. I will be seeing it as part of their arsenal. We always try and get Arsenal into our talks. It's an ongoing joke with Darren.
It's kind of a really bad one, but we'll let you go. Let you go just right now.
I'll get brownie points for that, so it's worth the shame.
It also shows that you're not a robot.
This is true. Unless I am, and he's pre-programmed me, which is not beyond the realms of capability these days.
Yeah, having worked with Darren, I can kind of say that might be a possibility too.
Oh yeah, he sent me a few videos recently that quite real. So keep your eye on our future advertisements for stuff that might blow your mind. But no, it is that aspect of we've got to think about the careers of future people joining as marketeers, and specifically in the recruitment industry where we've all grafted for a decade plus to make marketing a feature within a recruitment company. It's now the state where lots of recruitment companies respect it as a profession. We've got to be cautious that a lot of the hard work isn't undone by saying, here's the cheat code. So as a manager or as a advocate of recruitment as a career for marketers, I'd be saying, give your teams the tools, let them play, let them establish how it helps them get better, faster.
Yeah. And here's a good example as well. If we even extend that to all recruiters are marketers, and we've heard that expression many, many times. I was speaking with a company a couple of weeks ago, and again, marketers unite over this one, that the prevalence of e-shots and who owns e-shots, should consultants do their own e-shots, and there's risks of the brand and the spam, and that there's different risks. But I actually said to her, I said, why don't you create a nice AI-driven prompt for these e-shots, nail the prompt, nail the brand, and literally the consultants just would plug in, MPC emails, some might call it, the candidate hot jobs or hot candidates, whatever you call it. And you could even use AI to summarize, their CV. Let's try that. And I took it away. I'd seen them in person, this meeting, and I took it away, and I started playing on ChatGPT to give her the prompts. And I took a little bit, 10 minutes of playing around, but I nailed the prompt, and I did a bit of testing afterwards. Yep, the prompt is done. Boom, here you go. Go get the best for your teams out of this. But I think part of that was having the vision of what can I actually use it for? How can I use it to enhance a problem I'm having in the business, or enhance something I'm doing already? And B, what do I need to put into it to get the best out of it? And, there is I think one of the catastrophe elements on this is, over time, you really can do some big damage to your brand if you are just, copy pasting or just putting out kind of subpar content. It can actually have a big risk. I was talking, actually going back to the London Rec Expo in March, and it was really quite new on the scene at that point. And I saw some former colleagues of, big recruitment business. And this was like corporate roles. And they were saying, head of IT, head of legal are freaking out over this.
Yeah.
And my vantage point today, of course, is one of an SME market, but I get it. I get why there's this fear, and they had the vision of what it could evolve to. And I think that's something that we just need to be really mindful of. LinkedIn content is already very, very commoditized. We don't need more of it. The feed that we've passed that LinkedIn tipping point, that content, you're never going to see it because bad content isn't sticky. It doesn't get the engagement. So it's almost a reason we need to be better, not further commoditized for the sake of getting it out there and having a presence.
there's always already that sort of argument for actually really authentic voice, edits and kind of mistakes all in, just raw footage, raw information, raw human content is already getting higher rankings. It might be really, really appalling, but it's authentic. And it's that whole sort of like, the way in which TikTok's already kind of created this absolute need for authentic video and information that's getting premier spot in the search terms, and because it's actually not robot kind of content. And I think you mentioned it before as well, Christy, that sort of knowing the algorithms behind LinkedIn and where Google is actually starting to really think about SEO and all of those technology pieces that are there, the languages that we know as marketeers are really important to work with. We work with the algorithms, not against them. And actually, all of this new version of content isn't taking into consideration those premises and those kind of nuances that we have to learn to. And I think you raised a really interesting point, Kieran, as well. It's that expertise. So technology that augments, but in the hands of people who know and understand that discipline as well. And that maybe is something that we should dive into. The look and feel of a marketing team in today's organizations, if we take SMEs, because that's where we're kind of primarily operating right now, the look and feel of a marketing team in an SME isn't vastly different, in my opinion, to that it was 10 years ago. You have a marketing head or a lead, someone who's been managing and can manage that stakeholder management piece, but then you also have a couple of really adept, capable hands, and it may be that you have a data mind and a creative mind, within that sort of 3 to 4 person team. I don't think that structure really has changed, but I think the superpowers of those individuals and their sort of niche areas of expertise has probably been augmented or should be augmented. Do you see any different? What do you think?
I think you've almost summed up our team without us giving too much away. And I'd say, if the team are watching, don't take this personally. I would describe us as all being more technical leaning. Well, we've all got an eye for a creative, don't get me wrong, but establishing a team this year has been, for me, technical first. I want people to fully understand how things work behind the scenes with regards to how marketing fuels business growth, and stitching everything together from CMS to CRM, just to throw some acronyms in there for fun.
I was going to say we haven't had any acronym soup yet.
Yeah, I'd want my marketing teams to get that first. It may well, the downside to that may well be that some of our creative outputs, and I don't mind admitting this, are sometimes rough around the edges. And the reason for this is we like to get stuff out to the market and test whether it resonates and whether it works. So that's a lot of where we've adopted AI ourselves, not just about our product, but in our workflows. So to give you a real life example, we could work with, or we could hire a content writer, a copywriter. Between us, we're okay. We can do the bare bones and get something that we're happy with. And we've used a well-known spelling and grammar product to kind of draft boilerplate stuff that we know is what we need to use in what situations. And then if any one of the 3 of us needs to start something from scratch, we're never starting it from scratch. We know the boilerplate, we know the way it works. We can just right click and insert it. That's something we're looking at as a way to structure and roll out through the wider business. Is when we talk about the business in this way, this is how we describe it. That
having really clear
clear
guidelines and brand tone of voice, it's kind of almost like the foundational, have we got this, that, and the other, we can operate then. And like you say, the bare bones there.
But 10 years ago, you would create a document and send it around to the business. This is our tone. Speak about us in this way. Don't use this language, use that language. Let's face it, outside of the marketing team, did anyone do that? Did anyone ever reference it or look at it? Think, I'm about to send an email to a client. how do I mention? Is it we? Is it us? No one even. It never crossed anyone's mind. They wrote it how they wrote it. And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. We'll get away from humanizing things if we police it too strictly. But in terms of an efficiency, if I sit a tool behind anyone's browser that immediately, if they mention the business name, a little pop-up will appear, are you referencing this? Then we can all see how that makes us much more efficient.
Mhm.
We don't need a copywriter to sign everything off. No offense to copywriters. There's a place, and one day we might hire one, we might outsource some stuff. But on the day-to-day, where does my team need to go now? I can plug so many gaps with technology, and it goes back to that empowerment of the individuals in the team. They're going to be stronger marketers for it because they spend less time looking things up or double checking or Slack messaging or whatever, because it's right there.
Yeah. I think one thing, just from a marketer's lens of what you shared there, Kieran, I think you are a product, you're a scaling product that's a very product mentality, isn't it? Get it out and test and iterate and keep testing. I think that probably, if I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to make a big assumption. You must have your kind of drumbeat of activities that you're doing, and this becomes kind of, almost think of them as campaigns that hit on top of it. And what I love about that is also the fact that marketers, we need to be responsive. We need to be quick on the mark and be able to get things out. But to not, and again, thinking about it and relating it back to a recruitment agency who may not be quite as on the front foot of technology innovation as Pager, let's not take away from the value of a plan, and value of a marketing strategy. And I'm a big one for, it's the time of year, we need to be creating what are the business objectives, and off the back of it, let's create a marketing plan that aligns to it. Marketers with a documented plan, here's a stat, 313% more likely to report success off that plan. But that's not taking away from the fact that you can have this campaign or testing mindset and you will account for that in your plan. And guess what? You measure from your plan. I'm sure you guys are also measuring off of all of this. That's also a product mindset.
Always, absolutely everything we do is measured.
Yeah.
I bet.
I
know your boss. I bet everything is measured. But
everything in my last 20 years has been measured. It's kind of almost like I've measured stuff, whether or not my bosses or my organizations have actually listened to, the results of something is a different story. But I think, from the modern day of working, Christy, you're absolutely bang on. It's like, if you don't have something that is that sort of horizon view and the road, you've got it mapped out in terms of actually the activity that you're doing, there really isn't any, I don't think, and I really will stand by this as well, there is no value in a marketing team if you do not have a strategy or a plan that you're aligned to. And if you're not working in sync with the business, you are in a very vulnerable position. And that for me is really kind of, you're not helping yourself there at all, because you've not kind of anchored into the real purpose of the business and/or that commercial mindset, which obviously recruiters have, every organization that I know has. And unless you're doing something purely for the goodness of your heart to get out of bed every morning and be full on I can't even say it, philanthropic, I think that's the way it's said. But unless you're doing it for that reason only, you need to have a plan, you need to have that strategy in mind. And to Chris's point, have that always on, I call it business as usual, BAU. It's like, what is every week, every month, what do we have to do, and who do we need to do it for? And I think that's probably another lens that we can kind of really look at. If you're in a recruitment agency, you're going to have both your clients and your candidates that you'll still want to create brand awareness for, you'll still want to create that business development opportunities with, you'll still want to create that advocacy piece with. So you've got kind of like that ever increasing circles. I kind of nail it that way. If you're in a product mindset, you're selling products, you've got the sort of go to market, you've got the iterations, you've got your clients, and you've got their user cases, and their business case can come back in and kind of really wrap into your stories. But I think also as well, you've got that capabilities of going for new markets, new opportunities, and you've also got that sort of, how does our brand sit and resonate, and how does that all sort of, again, underpin everything that we're going on. So lots of different lenses, Kieran, that you're going to be kind of thinking about all the time. And I suppose it always does come back into, how can you have that 360 view in marketing to create that push into new spaces? I'm knocking myself out at the same time. Push into new spaces, but also really hold on to that heartbeat and control that brand narrative, because I think that's a bit that we almost sort of touched on as well. You know, AI has that capability of almost watering down so much of what we've spent a lot of time, and most organizations a lot of time, really thinking about that core brand value proposition, and actually we could leak all of that away. How do we stop that?
That's a good question. How do we stop that?
Questions.
I think it does come back down to, that human element, human touch, as cliched as that sounds, because I think there's two things been touched on there. What my examples earlier give a real kind of one side of that. We've all seen the graph, the brand and the campaign activation. My example there, where we can iterate fast, is very much attuned to AI can get us to do that campaign activation really fast. Like yesterday, we created a video using 2 different technology products, and today I can push that out as a paid ad, and I can immediately see whether that resonates. And then if it resonates, we can polish that video. We can actually get a videographer to do that video better. It gives us that activation. The fact that you even kind of not counter it, but bring back around, but what about the overarching brand narrative and the drumbeat or the heartbeat, however you described it? The fact that you're an experienced marketer made you think that way. So if people were just using AI for campaign activation and doing things faster, but without thought of the bigger picture, then that's what's going to happen, right? We've all done flash in the pan campaigns. Flash in the pan, is that an expression?
Yeah, I think so.
On-off campaign. I'm sure it is. Maybe I use these expressions too much, and then sometimes it sounds weird. We've all done it where we go, oh yeah, that was great, it got well received, but what money did we make? Well, it's often the campaign stuff that doesn't make tangible revenue, because we don't persist with it. We just test it, move on, test it and move on. Again, that's the narrative or structure of an experienced marketer's thinking is, yeah, test and iterate that, but I've got to be backed up by an overarching strategy and plan. If someone goes, right, we don't need a marketing lead, we'll just get a marketing assistant and give them all the AI, what's going to happen? They're just going to be tactical. They're going to do some fast turnaround stuff. And I think that would be quite negligent to just think we don't need anyone with some level of strategic experience. I think that's what you will end up with. To try and answer the question of how do you avoid the narrative being diluted, I think, again, that's having someone who that longer piece has to be tied to the business objectives. There's no harm in playing about, testing stuff. Can AI give me a great video I can get out and potentially get some traction from? That's great, try that. But I couldn't get away with just doing that day in, day out without a strategy behind it. And that naturally comes from talking to the board, to the CEO, and saying this is where we want the business to go. Marketing has to align to that.
Yeah, and you know, that's actually a really risky place for marketers to be in if they are, because they are never working towards that North Star. They would find it really, I mean, I'm such an advocate of metrics, as we've already said. I've actually just dropped a link in the chat here about recruitment marketing metrics that matter. So have a read of that. But ultimately, I kind of learned early in my career from very amazing marketers before me, you know, do 80% of stuff that you know is going to work, that you know is driving towards the, you know, what the business objectives are, which guess what, can change. It changes with the market. It changes. We're in especially in a supply demand more than really almost any industry. Some could argue that, but the candidate client supply demand is ever changing. You know, your marketing strategy, when I say write a plan, it's having the plan. It could shift a little bit in March, but at least you have your North Star 80% of the time. That 20%, use it to play with these things, find out what's working, measure it. And the problem with marketers is it could be endless. You know, it's not like finance. You finish the financial accounts and they're done. You know, you could just keep going and going. So you have to remember you only have 100% of your time, you know, find out what works in that 20%, replace from the 80% and do it again and do it again. And you're going to get a very optimized ROI driven program that aligns with those business objectives. There's a risk that marketers just are pulled in a million directions, especially with, you know, everybody thinks they're a marketer. For one, everybody thinks they have great ideas, but unless you know why you're doing it and what you want as the outcome from that and what it's contributing to, you know, you can result in, you know, very frustrated marketers or turnover perhaps, or, you know, being frozen, not knowing what to do, or worse yet, you know, burning through a lot of money without understanding why your marketing's not working for you.
I have the 3 rules for every marketing idea and campaign that gets washed by me. And there's quite a lot. I feel like some days I'm kind of in a tsunami of marketing suggestions and ideas. And I absolutely adore it because, you know, in the world in technology, and we're working over an amazing technology right now in terms of platform. We're obviously going live over LinkedIn, but you can constantly be barraged with ideas. And I think in order to have a very clear boundary of, like you said, Christy, this is my plan, this is my 80%, I've got a bit of wriggle room, but prove to me why I should test this idea, or why this idea is the most amazing, best thing. I always ask myself, so what's the purpose? Like, what are you trying to achieve here? And get that objective absolutely nailed. So you've got that real smart objective. Then talk about the how. How can we actually activate this idea? How is it actually going to be possible? Is there something like the technologies around that can make it super quick? That's great. Time is of the essence always. But if it's going to take a lot longer than that, why would we want to invest that level of time? Time is money after all. And then the final piece is always, what are our expected outcomes out of this, and what we're going to do with the outcomes? Not just what we're going to get, but what are we going to do with that information and intelligence or insight? Is it something, like Christy said, that we can plow back in to the existing plan? Is it going to be a game changer for us? So I think if you've got those sort of 3 rules, the sort of, you know, what's the purpose, what's the objective, how are we going to get there, and what are we expecting when we get there, and how are we going to use that information to really recycle back in, that gives you your framework. And that's a given to any marketeer out there, that, you know, senior places will already be thinking like this. But in those, you know, kind of early starting out in the career, this is a career as possibly the most expansive. You know, I look at all of the different divisions and departments of a business, but I still get very excited when someone says to me, thinking about marketing, what can you tell me about it? And, you know, I've had a house full of teenage boys over the weekend, and I had 2 guys come up, and they're only like 14, 15, but still they're already thinking. And actually marketing to them is the world, because it is absolutely the world. Like, you could do any kind of job in marketing right now, and every job is marketing. Like, every job is technology, every job is marketing too. So, you know, I kind of feel like it's a real inspirational opportunity. But if you can't if you can't create those boundaries and frameworks, you're going to be just lost at sea. Completely.
Arguably more so than ever.
Yeah,
Pushed and pulled down also more channels. Feels like
it
every
is a
week.
rabbit warren, isn't it? It's like you're constantly like getting dragged. How do we stop the distraction then? That's the other thing, because I think for me, you know, these tools and innovations are a massive disaster waiting to happen because of the distraction. Like, and I'm a shiny new toy kind of girl all the time as well, so I have to really be very specific about, again, why, how, and what do I do with this new tool? How do we stop everybody being distracted by this new thing?
I think that's really important, because it aligns to I'm stereotyping here, but I've met a lot of recruitment business leaders, and they are typical magpies. Anything new, anything shiny, they want a piece of, they talk to their peers about, and they all want the latest tech, regardless of what that is. If it creates revenue, we want it. And often it's creates revenue, but because it's been used in a certain way. So don't overlook that. Don't just go and buy the kit and have no one to run it. That's not changed, has it? AI doesn't change that. If anything, the same rules apply. Don't just subscribe to every piece of AI that's not been built in a way that's arguably fit for purpose for your existing workflows and where you do business. If you can fit it in to what you already do, that's always my kind of guidance, rather than buy something because it's novel and you've never seen it before isn't necessarily going to improve you tomorrow. Whereas buy something that fits with what you currently do, but makes it faster. I know I've made that point already. But your framework outline, does it fit within that? So if you've set your stall out and there's suddenly the opportunity to bring something in and it sits within it, I'd say again, that's the right time to almost be distracted.
Yeah.
If it's completely left field and something that your business has never entertained before, I would say it's highly unlikely that it's going to change your bottom line this year, because it takes so much learning and adoption to get it right that it doesn't matter if it makes an image as well painted as the Mona Lisa, whether you consider that well painted. You ever seen that, by the way? It's absolutely tiny.
Yeah.
It's so small, queued up for hours, and it's tiny. But what I mean is, you can create this. If the technology can create this amazing painting, that might blow your socks off. But how's that going to help your recruitment company next week? Probably not, is it? So that's what I mean about the distraction. It's got to sit within the confines of common sense and reality, hasn't it? It's not going to change the world for your business overnight. Not to say don't acknowledge it, but I would only take on something that I can sit within something that's already predetermined.
Yeah,
I think,
you know what, if I can, a comment that we've had here, and somebody who I know personally, and they are a founder of a recruitment business, but I'll paraphrase for those who are reading it, but they say, I love seeing the narrative story run through marketing, and sometimes AI doesn't help you understand your why or your how. Once you get that, you need to link your narrative back from that, so there's consistency. I see people, not marketing people, but creative, using AI, and it can create good and fast, yet unconnected content.
Yeah.
It sounds like a plan. It sounds like there needs to be a plan. There needs to be a North Star. There needs to be your why. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think what we were saying earlier again about people more junior in the career, where can you use the AI to your advantage then? Well, planning. You can actually say, rather than reading a full textbook, you can use ChatGPT to outline, I don't even know what this stands for anymore, but SOSTAC. I read about it loads of times. I've done marketing plans built around it, but I had to study it for far too long for ultimately what it was. Each section of it's quite obvious once you know what it is. Not that I can remember what the analogy stands for. The first one's situation. But being able to go, right, create me an outline SOSTAC model for a marketing strategy for a recruitment business. Well, if I'm a junior manager level or a senior exec level, and I've started to get some traction in a recruitment business, I can create a strategy document to present to my board a lot easier now with generative AI. The AI is only creating the outline. I've still got to put the meat on the bones, so to speak. That's where it can be handy in that respect. So I suppose it's topping and tailing it, help it get your strategy underway, help it with your testing. But that middle ground is still about your brain, isn't it? It's still human.
Absolutely. I think that application to, and the person who wrote that comment in, application to the core purpose is the most important factor. And I think none of the technology will enable you to kind of get that without a person really knowing and understanding the business heart. And it kind of gets, I get a bit fluffy about things like this, but it's really important. I'm working with a client at the moment who's had an absolutely amazing vision for their business. And we have done what I would call an absolute world beating record go-to-market kind of proposition. So from initial meeting to website, it was already kind of in creation, but to website content, like in and then go live, which will happen on Friday, it's taken 3 weeks. And I've, in that time, worked with them on their brand value proposition, their tone of voice. I've written and supported on content, which again came largely from the founder, but again, working with the tone of voice piece that we've created. We've worked on the look and feel of the design into social. So we're already starting to think about templates, signatures. We've also putting together pitch decks. So in such a small space of time, and again, maybe because I'm technology enabled, and I've done this, a couple of hundred times, it feels like now, but that whole essence and having someone who really knows what they want and what they need is what I'm providing. So we've got a very clear rules of engagement. This is my job. This is what I need from them. This is how I'm going to then produce it. And we work together in this sort of always on cyclone. So in 3 weeks, we've created something so amazing. I'm so excited that this is going to launch in the new year. There's content in there. There's value proposition. There's, sales enablement. All of that is baked in. It's all best of breed stuff. I know that if I didn't have the diligence, and I think this is the word that I was looking for before, the diligence to really think about, is this resonating? Is this absolutely what the brand value, essence needs to be? Then I wouldn't be proud of what we're taking to market at all.
And can I add in, this was not a quick job for you. 3 weeks is record for how much was done there, but you have put hours and hours and hours into this. So yeah, it's expedited something to 3 weeks versus 3 or more months, but it's not cutting corners. It's the speeding up. I was actually on a call minutes before we started this, and I won't mention the name because that's not fair to him, but he said,
he won't mind. Give him a shout out, Christy. He won't mind.
Okay. Rich Evans said to me, income follows assets. He says, if you have better assets and you won't be as I didn't write notes well enough, so I'm going to paraphrase. Income follows assets. Effectively, he was saying that if an asset, the better the asset, the better the outcome that's going to come from it. So if you're investing in your marketing, it's not about just doing kind of the base level of marketing in order to be able to refocus yourself on sales, because the better the marketing, the better outcome for the sales.
Yeah.
And everything. And one thing I'm actually really proud for our business this year is we've been, and this isn't even marketing related, but we've been investing in ourselves. We're in the process of writing out all of our standard operating procedures. We've implemented a back office end-to-end from sale through to measurement on output back office tool for marketing specifically. And I know these are investments. And I even use the analogy to my team. I'm like, we're putting money in the bank account right now. The Thrive bank account is growing. And that feels similar to this. Income follows assets. The better the bank account of assets you've created across your business, the team you hire, the marketing you put out, your value proposition, the tech you leverage, and shout out to post-COVID. I really think our industry has done such amazing, or really gotten on that tech bandwagon in a positive way. Not always successfully, but in a positive way. There's a definite mind shift. But all of these things is an investment in the business. And income follows assets, as this expression went.
I think that kind of really does underline the value piece. And again, we talk about we're in the people space, right? We operate in people tech, and we operate in marketing tech, but it's in the people space, recruitment. But we talk about people being the best assets that organizations have, and actually that kind of always comes full circle. If we don't keep investing in our people, they are not going to enable us to kind of get to that next level in terms of business growth. And so, massive advocate in brand from a people and employer brand perspective, and commercial brand kind of really aligning. If you can create that kind of career journey and that evolution and evolution for your people, your brand will also do the same in the markets that it's operating in. And I think that if you have that mindset, particularly in marketing, then you'll always win. But I suppose it's also, as well as we're kind of coming up to the hour, really important to think about the marketing team of the future, and also that whole sort of like value exchange. And for me, a marketing function is always going to be there for growth. Like you invest in marketing for growth, not just for your people, but for the business, obviously the products, the services, the solutions that you offer. I think having that ability to be multi-dimensional in your engagement strategies, that's got to be a real clear value piece again for your marketing function. If they cannot engage on multiple platforms, then they're probably not the right people for the job. You've got to be able to see that dimensional kind of scope. And I think the final piece is on my notes here, so I'm just going to bring this down, but it's really kind of that commercial strategy. It's unifying that. So I do a lot of work with business development. I do a lot of work with senior sales. I do a lot of work across the sales architecture, if you like, because actually the conversation at the beginning is exactly as important as the beginning, as the beginning of the conversation for a client is exactly the same for conversations that you're talking about advocacy. So being able to have that narrative all the way through, that brand value element and essence needs to wash all the way through that. So from initial contact all the way through to advocacy. And I think, yeah, having those three, again, I love the power of three, but those three kind of value pieces for me. Have you got anything, what would you throw into the mix, Kieran, in terms of the value piece for marketing teams of the future?
I think that's, as a marketing leader, so anyone watching this who's perhaps a marketing leader within a recruitment business, I think we've had a tough job positioning marketing as a value provider, someone who brings value to the business, whether that's cold hard cash and revenue, or whether it's enabling your sales teams to do more. At the heart of it, we've always known that's what we're in the business to do and what we are doing, and we've all done it. Recognition of that has not always been as prominent as recognition for other parts of the business. But I think we just take that on the chin and crack on, don't we? We've tried to instill as much as possible how much marketing can change the future and the growth potential of a recruitment company. There's definitely more people willing to listen to that. So I think in terms of marketing leaders showing the value marketing can bring, they've got to be the one that kind of almost recast where marketing sit within that business. It's not just lining things up for sales. Sorry, not to be confused, Christy. I'm talking to you too much about sale, not sales. And it's more thinking about, okay, how do we position the marketing function within the business? Well, we've always been quite tech savvy as marketers, certainly in my time, last 15 years or so. We tend to be the team that can test bed or sandbox technology. So AI is nothing different than that. So I think in terms of what value we can bring to the business, we can be the ones that iterate and test how AI can support certain functions, and then help enable others in business to do that once we've tested it out and figured out where it can potentially go wrong. No offense to salespeople, but if we give them something that takes them from 0 to 10 and then add to that, and it quickly takes them from 0 to 100, they're going to clutch it with both hands and go to 500 and 1,000 before we know it. And unfortunately, they might not have the level of diligence to check through exactly what's just gone in that job spec you've put out there. Whereas the marketing team will tend to use that technology, test it before unleashing it within the business. So again, not marketing, but I feel like we're well placed to go, do you know what? We're going to run a project that tests ChatGPT, whatever it might be within the AI world. And we're going to be the ones that gatekeep it and make sure it's rolled out in a way that ultimately continues the good messaging we've established, because we should be the gatekeepers to that messaging anyway. Yeah. Does that answer that? I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. What about you, Christy?
I'd actually build on that in talking to a different audience. I'd actually build on that, tackling to the recruitment leaders, or managing directors, sales leaders, whomever that is in order for the marketer needs to be enabled. You know, that person needs to be the sponsor that not only gives them that space to do the testing and do those pieces, but then buys into it themselves and then disseminates that message across the business. And actually, there's another step there that I failed to mention. The other step there is they need to make sure, you know, marketing and operations or sales, they're still siloed, and which is crazy, right? Crazy. Why are, you know, if you're both aiming up for the same objective, how do you not know what they are? And that marketer, whether they're physically at that decision-making table or not, you know, that's an argument, but at least share the vision, share the business objectives and the revenue objectives with that marketer, so they know what they should be focusing their energies on. So often whether it's the consultants or the marketing or recruitment leader, says, well, it's not making any difference. It's not having any benefit. Well, have you actually told them what the business goals are? So that's step one. Make sure they know what the goals are then give them the freedom to go have that testing mindset, test it out, do these things. But when it comes time to implement it in the business, that leader has to have their back. They have to be the sponsor to it. They have to arm that marketer with, and especially a more junior marketer, arm them with what the consultants care about. You know, don't go into click through rate and visit, and, you know, you're breeding this kind of fly by night kind of noise. There you go. That's a good way to put it. Arm them with the messages that's going to resonate with those consultants. Yes, maybe the marketer is excited about all this other stuff. Doesn't matter. Make it relevant to the consultants. And then that sponsor needs to be their back, have their back, and take that message with them everywhere they go and reiterate. And only then will you actually see change in the business, because all of this is great. You can have all this tech. There's a massive change management that needs to accompany it. And that's the role that sponsor needs to play in it.
So what are we saying? What are we saying then for recruitment marketing as I suppose an entity, a profession, whatever we want to bracket it as, opportunity or catastrophe?
I'm certainly opportunity as well. I'm going to be always half full, but yeah, I totally agree, Christy. You know, the way in which we could innovate, scale, grow, not just as individuals, giving us kind of, you know, our career trajectories a bit of a boost, but also as well, that kind of position within an organization gives us credence, gives us that capability. And yeah, I think really is a fantastic opportunity. And again, just with a bit of caution, but use your common sense. I think you said that word before, Kieran, and it is, you know, what we do isn't rocket science. We do a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
We make a massive, massive impact, but if we're busy fools, we're not doing anything really, really well. So yeah. I think caution is the kind of tiny caveat in all of that.
I think it's a massive opportunity for marketers as individuals. I think the only way it will become a catastrophe is for business owners and business leaders that see it as the silver bullet to recruitment marketing. So if they've never really invested in recruitment marketing, it might seem like the cheap avenue to get things going. That will just end up in failure and tarnishing recruitment marketing as anything that you do
and
again.
Their brand. And their
brand.
Yeah,
that goes with that. Easily sink them. You're right. I think in that mindset, without the change mindset and with that sort of ability to see the bigger picture, you know, it's kind of almost like take yourself back to the times where abacuses were there instead of calculators for the finance team. You know, like that's
you don't get rid of the finance team.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, good point. Okay, guys, we are over the hour now. There actually has been a question come in from Charlotte in this time. Kieran, I'd love for you to go to the chat because I know I feel you are the man to answer this question afterwards. I said we'd fill that in.
Yeah, sure. Is that on LinkedIn? I've not had LinkedIn open.
Yeah, I've not had.
Yeah, so there has been. What I will say, probably more widely to everybody watching, if you have additional questions, pop them in the chat. It will stay open because the page stays open. And from there, we'll do our best to answer them and keep the conversation going, you know, message it. I'm sure I'm going to speak for all three of us, message all of us, you know, via Thrive. We actually have some, our own our own kind of comms that I've shared some links in the chat there that could maybe help you kind of go in, and a little bit kind of tactical pieces as well that can help you get going on your AI as part of your wider strategy.
Yeah, and I really love this chat as well. And maybe if anybody else needs it, we might make a little bit more of a regular show. You know, 3 marketing.
Yeah, happy to. Not always about AI though. It's
no,
I have to
like,
rack my
we might be able
brains.
to talk about other things. I mean, the thing is, there is always going to be something for us to talk about for sure. But yeah, maybe that's something as well. You want to drop into the chat. What do you want to hear about?
Please.
Yeah, we'd basically love to share. I think we're all really good sharers.
Wednesday lunchtime's a good time to have a chat. I'm happy to come back again.
Yeah, cool.
Let's do it.
That's great.
Let's do it. It's a date, guys. We just need said date. But this has been brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for everyone. We had such a tremendous response to the number of signups for this. So
yeah.
I'm humbled, but also excited. You know, I am a massive advocate, and I love my profession. I love my industry, and yeah, it feels like we're, you know, we're in this together, right? So let's
embrace the change. That's what will see us through.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take care.
Guys, have a great afternoon. Go get your lunches. Take care.
Bye.